Alright, so happy 4th of July to everyone. Today is July 4th. I know by the time I put this video out, it's no longer going to be July 4th, but nonetheless, today I have a Honda Accord, and it's here just for a brake fluid change. You can see how black that is. I'm pretty sure that's just the original fluid that came with the car. What year is this thing? 2016 Accord. So using my pump here, I've sucked out as much of the old brake fluid as I can, and I refilled it with some fresh brand new fluid. As you can see, it looks a lot better already. But now that this is filled, I'm gonna go ahead and put the cap on it, and I could take off each wheel starting at the back and start bleeding at the calipers basically to get clean fluid out of each caliper. So I'm just here using my vacuum pump to basically pull out the brake fluid. And while I got the pump doing it, I also get in the car and pump the brake pedal, of course with the valve open. And I just keep doing it until the fluid that's coming out looks pretty clean, and move on to the next one. So far this is the second wheel on the rear of the car. So after I'm done here, I'm gonna go knock out the front, and that should pretty much be it. Alright, so I just about finished doing the front brakes, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure everything's all good. Torque down the wheels and take it out for a test drive and see if it made any difference. Alright, so that's it. Taking this Accord out for a test drive, and brake pedal feels good, nice and firm. Not that there was a real problem before, because it's it's not that old of a car, so the pedal wasn't horrible before, but I did agree with the owner that the pedal doesn't feel like it should feel for a newer car. You know what I mean? Some of these newer cars, it's like you just tap the brake pedal and you get whiplash. That's how I expect newer cars to feel. And yeah, the brake pedal does feel better. It feels a bit more firm than it did before. But I'm gonna tell her, hey, maybe she's gonna need a set of pads and rotors at least up front if she wants the brake pads to just bite a little bit better. But that's it. The brakes feel good. So this is the only job I had scheduled for today. I don't know if I mentioned that, maybe. But once again, happy holidays to everyone, and be safe out there. I'm in a Mazda cx7. I think it's like a 2007 or something like that. It was just here the other day. I did brakes on it, tie rod, rear sway bar links and that stuff. But it's back now because he has a check engine light on. It's been on forever, and he says it's an EGR code, and about 3 weeks ago he had someone else put an EGR on it and it did not fix the problem. So he wanted me to look into it, but I pulled the car into the garage, checked the codes, and there isn't a single code referring to anything with the EGR valve. We have a bunch of lean codes. Now, sure, that could be associated with it. But one thing I'm seeing here is, see the upstream sensor? It doesn't respond at all. Like, it's just stuck. So the math is going to be the red line. And you can see as they hit the accelerator pedal, oh, it moved a little bit, but it still went right back to the 1.010. Yeah, so that upstream sensor is not responding to anything. And even if I try to create a rich condition by constantly hitting the throttle, you can see the upstream oxygen sensor isn't really moving at all. So I think that's where all these lean codes are coming from. We have a stuck upstream oxygen sensor. Alright, so I noticed the car is stuck in open loop, and maybe that's why we're not getting any EGR codes like the owner is saying. But anyway, it's stuck in open loop, okay? So I can't really look at fuel trims. So what I decided to do is create a vacuum leak. And even with that thing unplugged, I could hear the engine starting to stumble now. But we're still not getting a response on that air fuel ratio sensor. It's still stuck. So next step is I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect that, and then I'm gonna try to create a rich condition by, I don't know, maybe adding some propane into the system and see if the sensor changes. Went ahead and plugged this hose back in to get rid of that vacuum leak. And before I try to recreate a rich condition, I pulled out the air filter. This has got to be the weirdest looking air filter I've ever seen. It's so freaking thin. But this thing is completely, it's hard to tell, but it is completely caked and destroyed. This air filter should have been replaced a long time ago. Alright, and This light right here, it's hard to see, but that mass airflow sensor, at least the temperature sensor, is looking pretty dirty. So if the temperature sensor looks that bad, we can only assume that the actual mass airflow sensor looks bad. So I'm gonna try to get this, yeah, it looked like it just held on with Phillips screws. So I'm gonna see if I can get this sensor out and see how dirty it is. Alright, so I got the mass airflow out, and if you look at the temperature, if I get this to focus, temperature sensor on the back side doesn't look too bad. The front side, you can see how it's dark right there. And the actual airflow sensor inside of there, you see it? It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but it still looks dirty. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get this cleaned out as best as I could. See, I tried to clean up that sensor if it would focus, and the same thing for this one inside of here. I don't have a long thin brush to get inside of there, so I just had to do with the pressure of the mass airflow cleaner, and hopefully made some improvement. But you know, this is just a small piece of the puzzle. I think there's something else going on here, but having a dirty mass airflow sensor definitely does not help, and can cause its own problems. Alright, so obviously the engine is running. I got the scanner running, and I have my, actually using map gas here. And what I'm going to do is introduce the map gas into the system, and if this sensor was doing anything, we should see the sensor respond. So you're going to know when I turn on the map gas, because you're going to start to hear the engine stumble. But let's go ahead and turn it on now. You hear that? This engine practically wants to turn off. Alright, so it did go up to 2, and I turned off the map gas already, as you can tell, and it went right back exactly to 1.01. And once again, I turned on the map gas, and this time it's not doing anything. Up there it goes again. Alright, and just for reference, so I can show you guys, I'm now in my Nissan Versa, and it also uses a air fuel ratio sensor. And if you look at the data here, you can see it's hanging around 1, but you could actually see it fluctuating. You see that? I'm going to go ahead and step on the accelerator pedal, and we could see that responding, going rich, going lean, and then it comes right back. It's trying to keep it around 1. See, but on that Mazda, we just don't get that. It is literally stuck. It does not fluctuate like it should. So this is an example of a good working sensor. Back in this Mazda, and looking at the same air fuel ratio sensor, just another point of reference. So you can see where it's just flatline stuck. The car is running now, and I'm gonna go ahead and step on the accelerator pedal, and we get absolutely nothing out of this sensor. So it's a done deal. It's gonna get a new sensor before I could continue diagnosing anything else, because there is concerns of, well, the owner stated something about an EGR problem. So I can't even get the car to go into closed loop. So because of this, we need a new sensor first. Alright, so before I quit looking at this car for today until we get some parts, so the owner said something about EGR. The EGR was replaced like 3 weeks ago or something. So here I got some data pits pulled up, or at least one of them, for the EGR, and let's go ahead and command it on. You know what, let's see if we could add maybe desired RPM. Oh, RPM, okay. Alright, so let's keep an eye on the, right here, RPM. See, we're on 720. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the EGR valve. At 5%, I barely feel anything. 10 so much, not so much either. And now I'm starting to feel a little bit of a stumble. Let's open it up to 20%. Oh yeah, I really feel a stumble now. 25. Yeah, it's stumbling pretty good. You can see the camera shaking. Okay, so should I open it one more time? Oh yeah, yep, this engine's about to stall. So let's go ahead and close the EGR. that tells me that the EGR is working. So as of right now, I'm not going to be too concerned with it. I really want to change this air fuel ratio sensor first, and we'll pick up from there once I get the new part. Last thing I want to look at on this Mazda, it almost slipped my mind, but the owner reminded me, is that the AC does not work. So he just wanted me to look into it real fast. The first thing I did is I connected my gauge right here on the low side, and just to confirm that we do have Freon in the system, and we do. So I pulled out the relay for the AC compressor, and it sits right here in the center. Right, so I used my relay bypass tool and I turned it on, and it did not turn on the AC compressor clutch. Okay, so that means we have a problem somewhere. Obviously we do have a problem somewhere. The AC doesn't work right. But so pull that out, and I wanted to just go ahead and verify that we are getting power here. So on the switch side, there goes our power, and if you turn off I got the key in the run position right now, or the accessory, whatever it is. And as you can see, we do get power here with the AC button turned on. And here goes the load side, so we do have power on the load side. Alright, so if I go ahead, take my test light, let's put it on battery positive now. Alright, so if we touch ground, let's verify it works, and it does work. So at this point, anything that we touch that could find its way to ground should turn on the test light. So the other side of the load circuit, which would be this pin right here, and I'm not really stabbing these, I'm not spreading the terminals or anything, I'm just touching them. As you can see, our test light does not light. If everything was intact, we would get this light to turn on, simply because through the coil winding of the AC compressor clutch, it should find a way to ground and turn on this test light, but it's not. Okay, so at this point, either we have a broken wire somewhere, or we have a bad AC compressor clutch. We are back with this Mazda cx7, I believe. As you can see, we have a new air filter. Now this is actually a K&N air filter I found off an owner, and he said it's been in his car since about, I think he said like 30,000 miles. The car is now at 170,000. This filter has been in this car for a very long time. He said he agrees that it's time to ditch it in favor of just a standard filter, so that's what we're gonna do. I also got a new air fuel ratio sensor, which looks like it's going to go right back there. You can see that. And we also have new rear pads and rotors. So I'm gonna try to go ahead and get all of this knocked out today. I'm almost done with the back brakes. I knocked down one side, but then I decided to come out and do the air fuel ratio sensor. So you can see that's installed already, and it was kind of a pain in the butt to get underneath the car and, you know, run the wire harness where it's supposed to be and put everything how it's supposed to be. But it's all done, so let's go ahead, get inside the car and look at the scan data. Alright, so I'm inside the Mazda. I got the engine running and I cleared the codes on it. So just pulling up some data right here, we could already see we're getting some activity on the new air fuel ratio sensor, whereas last time we had just like a flat line. So let's go ahead and get on the accelerator pedal, and we're going to see this fluctuate even a little bit. Look at that. That sensor is definitely responding. And what do we know? Look at this. It's in closed loop. Before, the car would not get out of open loop. It was indefinitely stuck right there because the air fuel ratio sensor wasn't working. So this is really good to see. The new sensor looks like it's responding well, and the fact that we're in closed loop, that's all a thumbs up in my book. Nice. Okay, so I did make the owner aware that he may get a check engine light, because now that the car is going to be running in closed loop, it could start running its tests on its other monitors, you know, like heater circuits on the downstream O2 sensor, catalyst efficiency, and things of that nature. Oh crap, that was me. So yeah, it's just something you got to make people aware of, that they may get a check engine light. It's kind of hard to explain. You know, you tell them you fix the car, yet they may get a check engine light. It's really difficult for some people to understand. But this looks good, so I'm gonna go ahead, turn the engine off, and finish up with the rear brakes. Alright, so I'm in this Mazda and it seems to be driving good. You can see the new mass airflow sensor. You can see the new air fuel ratio sensor is working just fine. And for some reason this scanner won't let me put the loop status along with another data pit together. I don't know, but I did check it and it is in closed loop right now. So, drives good, the brakes feel good, everything's good. Just give it back to the owner, and if a check engine light pops on, that's when I'm bring it back and we'll figure out what the check engine light's for. But that's it for this one. Appreciate you guys watching and coming along on this little journey. Wasn't too bad, it was a pretty simple job overall. Here at this Mazda cx7. The owner called me today and dropped it off because he said he's hearing a rattling noise, and he notices that if he goes over bumps he could hear the rattle, but if he holds the brake pedal a little bit the rattle goes away. So he was scared. He brought it over right away because he thought, since I just did the brakes, he thought something was loose and I left the brakes loose or something, right? But no. Took it out for a test drive. I could hear a rattling noise, and he specifically said the rear right side. And after driving it for a few minutes, I'm like, that sounds like a blown out shock. So I go underneath the truck, and sure enough, the rear right side strut is blown out. But at this point it would get both of them replaced. But don't you, and oh, by the way, I did the brakes over a month ago, okay, and he's just starting to hear this noise, and you were the last one to do the brakes, and all of a sudden, yeah, I think you left something loose on the brakes. Just need shocks. Alright, so here's the rear brakes, and the front ones are brand new too. I put everything on it, new pads, new rotors, and after taking it out for a test drive, the brakes feel even better right now than they did when I initially did them. You know, there's a whole break-in period and all that stuff, but yeah, I thought the brakes felt great when he first dropped it off. So anyways, let's look at the rear shock. You can see, you see the oil? See how it's wet up there? Got this Mazda cx7 back again. The owner was driving and he said the ABS and traction light came on. I just checked it. It said something, we have something going on with the right front wheel. But another bigger issue is, he said it feels like the front brakes are being applied even though he's not pushing the brakes, and he noticed an extreme amount of heat coming from the front left wheel right here. So if we come on the driver's side now, the car is lifted off of the ground. You can see I can move this wheel back and forth without a problem. But when we come on this side, it won't budge. This caliper is not letting the, and it is off the ground. I'll show you because I could move it side to side, but it won't let me spin the wheel like I can on the other side. So I'm not even gonna mess around with this. It's gonna get a new caliper and a new brake hose, because I don't need to come back. You know, we changed the caliper and then it comes back for the same problem, and it turns out it was the hose all along. So right off the bat, it's gonna get a new brake hose and a new caliper on the front left side. While I'm waiting on the owner to bring me a new brake hose and a front left caliper, I have some new rear shocks for him, so it's what I'm doing. Just pulled out the one that was right here, which is this one. They were leaking and actually making a noise. So as you can see, I pretty much got the new one assembled and it's ready to go back on the car. Alright, so this side is in place. Everything is tightened down, and just gonna go ahead and knock out the other side. Alright, so we have a brand new caliper for the front left side and a new brake hose. So I'm just gonna go ahead, slap both of these on, bleed the system, and it should be good to go. Everything is put back together and tightened down. I already bled the system. We got a good brake pedal. So let's put the wheel back on it, take it out for a test drive, and then inspect for any leaks. But I kind of already looked for leaks. We don't have any. Got a Lincoln MKZ here. It's here for a few different problems. One of them is the check engine light is on. It says it's got a misfire in cylinder 4. So just using a scanner or the scope real fast. So you get a signal on this one, get a signal on this one, and on number 4, absolutely nothing. So I went ahead and did a cylinder drop test, and of course when I unplugged the coil, nothing happens at all. It's, you know what I mean? So it's not contributing. It's super simple to get to, so I'm just going to swap coils. And if it doesn't fix it, then we'll figure out what's causing it. Simple as that. There's absolutely no reason to swap these coils. We found a problem. Look at this. This is crazy. You won't believe how bad this smells. It just smells like burnt plastic. So this is an ongoing issue. This car has been misfiring for quite some time, and they just chose to ignore it. Just keep driving. And honestly, it's not even here because of the misfires. It's here because the battery keeps getting drained, and they have to constantly jumpstart the car. Okay, that's why it's here. It's not even here because of this. This is crazy. Looking inside of there, the spark plug is destroyed. I could see chunks of the porcelain missing, and they're sitting at the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and blow it out with some compressed air before I remove that spark plug. I'm also gonna remove this spark plug just so I can see the condition of both of them. If they look like they're really worn out, I'm gonna recommend they get all the plugs changed. And it's hard to tell, but I'm sure you guys could see one of the pins inside of here, the green crusties. Yeah, it is crazy. So let me go ahead and get these plugs out. So I got the plug out. So the plug is not broken, the porcelain is still intact. What I was just seeing is chunks of this inside of there. You can see how that spark plug looks. It's basically from it I'm assuming it's from it being sprayed with fuel and none of it's igniting. So you can tell that spark plug is done for. This is the one from the cylinder right next to it. You can see how it looks way different. Doesn't look horrible. I'm gonna suggest that they change all the plugs, but since the manifold has to come off, it looks like, to get to the back plugs, I'm sure they're not gonna want to pay for all that labor. So at minimum, replace this one plug and this one ignition coil. Another problem was the battery dying. All the places they took it to said that the battery is fine. I checked the sticker on the battery. It says 2017, and we are currently in 2020. Okay, so anyway, after I turned the car off, checked the battery, and it says like 12.6 volts, but I turned the high beams on, and they were on for about 30-40 seconds, and I just saw the volts on the battery just plummet. And now I got the lights turned off, and like I said, they were only on for like 30-40 seconds. Now we turn the key, won't do anything. Dead battery. Alright, so you can see I got my leads connected to the battery, and we're still at the point where I only ran the headlights for about 30 or 40 seconds, and look at how many volts this thing is putting out. 8.2 volts, and that's because I turned the lights off. I'm sure it would have kept dropping. We have a bad battery here. Battery's not really accepting a charge. The alternator is putting out more than enough voltage. The alternator is trying to charge, but the battery is not really accepting it. So when you turn the car off and you go to test it, it seems like the battery is fine because it has a surface charge on it. But besides that, it just plummets, and yeah, this thing is done for. So I think I'm done with this car. It's going to get a new battery, a new ignition coil, new spark plug. So here's the jump starter that the owner actually bought because the battery keeps dying so often, and she just went out and bought a jump starter. That's kind of sad. But let's go ahead, turn it on. It says it has 84% charge. I still got my meter connected. As you can see, it says 8 volts right now, so let's give it a boost. Alright, it jumped up to, wow, that's amazing. It jumped up to almost 15 volts. Let's go ahead and start it. Nice. Alright, so they just dropped off some parts. They brought me 2 Motorcraft spark plugs because it's what I request. Well, I requested 1 spark plug, and I recommended to get a Motorcraft, but they bought 2, and I was like, well, if you want to return it, you can. And he's like, well, you could keep it. I'm like, I'm not gonna keep it, I'll just put it on the car, you know. So whatever, it'll get 2 new spark plugs. And we have a Duralast ignition coil. I guess it's better than value crap, right? So here goes the new one. I showed him the burnt up coil and he couldn't believe it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this taken care of, and they're gonna try to track down a new battery and they're gonna be dropping it off. It looks like we are not done here. So I put the new coil over here, right? And still we had a misfire in this cylinder. So I swapped the cores around and now the Duralast one is firing. So basically this is working, and now we're getting a code and the code's gone. But basically it said a circuit problem for this ignition coil. That's not good. So swap them around and you can see we are getting some activity on the new Duralast one, but when we go over here, nothing. So we have a problem. We have a wiring problem. That or the freaking PCM is fried. That'll suck. Alright, so I'm on the second one. You can see we're getting a signal. Look at the power balance here. Of course, it's still misfiring. I checked power. We do have power at it, but we have nothing, another wire. See, there goes our power. But when we go on the other wire, we got nothing. Alright, so I think I'm done looking at this car because we got power on one wire, but we're not getting the signal from the ECM to turn on the ignition coil. It's not doing its thing, guys. And the customer is not going to pay me to dig around and figure out what's going on, whether like the driver, who knows, maybe did that coil that burned up and melted, did it take the driver out with it? It's possible. I don't know. The point is, when I initially got the call this morning, I told him, yeah, sure, bring it over. I could look at it and it'll be this much money to look at it, right? And they told me, oh, well, she didn't want to take it to a shop because they were going to charge her to diagnose it. So I figured we could take it to you or AutoZone so they could diagnose it. And I told them, well, AutoZone doesn't really diagnose anything. They're just going to tell you if your alternator or your battery works, and even that's a 50-50 chance on whether they're right or wrong. So she was like, all right, we're just gonna bring it to you. So right off the bat, I already knew they don't want to pay for anything, okay? Because I even told her over the phone, I was like, well, if I spend an hour or two looking at your car, how am I not gonna get paid for it? You know, and they were just like, well, we were hoping that you could look at it without charging us, because she doesn't want to go to a shop, and they said they would charge her to look at it. Well, I gotta charge it too. So anyway, yeah, this is turned into a way bigger issue. At this point, I would go straight for the ECM and see if we're getting the signal that we need right out the ECM. If we are, then we have a broken wire somewhere. If we're not, then check powers and grounds on the ECM, and you would have to go ahead, I guess, and call a bad ECM at that point. But like I said, I'm not getting paid to do all that, nor do I have a wiring diagram. And I know you could get them, you know, if you paid a subscription per car, and that's all fine, but again, they're not going to pay for any of that stuff. So there isn't much else I could do here. I feel really bad. You know, you could say, oh, well, you made us buy an ignition coil and a spark plug. Did it need it? Of course it needed it, but it also has other problems. So unfortunately, this one's not going to get fixed today. I don't know what else to say, guys. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave it there because this really sucks.